You've probably heard this 100 times. If you just had the right strategy, your business would explode. But after 20 years of working with founders, I can tell you the truth. Most businesses don't stall because of strategy. They stall because they ran out of money to execute the strategy they already have. That's it. Not motivation, not mindset, capital. Think about your own business for a second. You probably know exactly what needs to happen next. Hire that key operations person. Upgrade the software that keeps breaking. Invest in a proper marketing campaign instead of doing it all yourself. You know the moves, but the question is, can you fund them? Every quarter, you're reinvesting scraps. You're hoping next month's cash flow covers next month's ideas. And eventually, the gap between what you know to do and what you can afford to do starts to widen. That's where most businesses live, inside that gap. The Federal Reserve's 2024 Small Business Credit Survey found that nearly 60% of owners who missed their growth goals last year said that funding was the reason. Not customers, not competition, funding. Lack of access to growth capital. Now let's make this real. Say you run a service company doing $2 million a year. You want to grow 25%. That's another $500,000 in sales. To support that, you'll likely need $250,000 to $350,000 in working capital, enough to hire, market, and give yourself runway for the next revenue to catch up. Without that cash cushion, every new hire feels like a gamble. Every marketing campaign feels like a risk. So you hesitate. And hesitation is expensive. While you're debating one hire, a competitor that just raised capital just added 3 people, automated their processes, and took your market share. Not because they're smarter, but because they're funded. Now let's talk about why this happens. For decades, banks were the default source of business funding. You walk in with your plan, shake hands with the branch manager, and walk out with a line of credit. Well, that world doesn't exist anymore. Over the last 2 years, commercial lending to small business has tightened by almost 30%. Approval rates for new applicants are below 40%. Banks want 2 years of profitability, collateral they can seize, and a personal credit score north of 700. If you're growing fast, reinvesting profits, and carrying minimal hard assets, you don't fit their model. It's not personal, it's policy. So what's a service-based business supposed to do? You have clients, revenue, reputation, but no hard assets to borrow against. That's where new capital markets come in. Last year, more than $800 million was raised through Regulation Crowdfunding, what the SEC calls Reg CFs. And this wasn't just tech startups. More than 20% of those raises came from professional services, trades, healthcare, and other real-world businesses, companies just like yours. They raised money directly from customers, community supporters, and everyday investors who believed in them. Here's what that means for you. You can raise up to $5 million in a 12-month period without going public, without venture capital, and without giving up control. You just have to be investor ready. Your financials have to be clean, a clear story, and a growth plan mapped. Let's zoom out for a second. The average U.S. business under $10 million in revenue operates with less than 60 days of cash reserves. One bad quarter, one slow client cycle, and growth plans get shelved. Meanwhile, companies with at least 6 months of working capital grow nearly twice as fast, according to the SBA. That's not coincidence. That's liquidity. Liquidity equals freedom. Don't you want to be free? Freedom to hire before you burn out. Freedom to market when competitors are pulling back. Freedom to systematize instead of a firefight. And freedom is what every founder actually wants. So let's get practical. How do you know if you're undercapitalized? Here's a quick test. Do you have at least 3 months of fixed expenses in cash or available credit right now? Do you have the capital to fund your next 2 key hires without tapping your personal savings? Do you have money allocated for growth systems? I'm talking marketing, tech, or automation over the next quarter. If you answered no to any of those, you're not scaling. You're surviving. Strategy can't fix survival. Only funding can. And before you think, well, I'll just bootstrap my way there, let's do the math. Bootstrapping can work when growth is slow and margins are high. But most service-based businesses run on tight margins and people-heavy delivery. That means cash flows lag. Every new contract creates more work before it creates more cash. If you don't have capital to bridge that gap, your business growth feels like a treadmill, faster legs, same distance. The smarter move is to build a capital strategy the same way you build a marketing strategy. Not reactive, planned, funded, predictable. There are three main options. Option 1, keep self-funding. You own it all, but you grow slowly. Option 2, take on debt. That works if you have a consistent cash flow and a repayment plan. Option 3, raise equity or revenue-based capital. You share the upside, but gain speed. Most founders dismiss that third option because they only assume investors only care about tech or high-growth startups. That's outdated thinking. There are investors today actively looking for stable, cash-flowing service businesses that produce steady returns. They're dentists, doctors, professionals with money, sitting idle earning 5% who'd rather get 10 to 12% backing you. But they can't find you because you've never packaged your business as an investable asset. You built a great company. You just haven't built an investor story. Your investor story answers 3 questions. Why is this business safe? How does it scale? And how do investors get paid back or earn returns? When you can clearly answer those questions, money follows. Here's an example. We work with a home service company doing around $3 million a year. Good reputation, solid backlog, but every busy season they hit the same wall. No working capital. They couldn't hire fast enough, so jobs got delayed. We helped them prepare a Regulation CF campaign. They raised $600,000 from local customers and small investors in 90 days. They used it to hire technicians, buy inventory in bulk, and systematize scheduling. In 12 months, revenue jumped 38%. Same market, same leadership, different balance sheet. That's the power of funded implementation. Now, a word of caution. Capital isn't magic. If your systems are broken, funding just accelerates the chaos. But if your systems are proven and your bottleneck is cash, capital is the most strategic tool you can deploy. So here's what I want you to do after listening. Step 1, calculate your implementation gap. Take your growth goal for the next year and list every cost required to make it real. People, marketing, tech, and operations. Step 2, subtract what you can fund internally. The difference is your funding gap. That's the number you need to close with external capital. Step 3, decide your timeline. If you want to scale 20% in the next 12 months, you'll need that money now, not later. Because capital delayed is opportunity denied. Once you know your gap, you can choose your path. Debt if cash flow is stable. Crowdfunding if your brand has a loyal audience. Private investors if you can articulate returns. The point is, you stop hoping and start planning. In a tightening economy, the founders who survive are the ones who treat capital as a core function of leadership. They think about capital the way they think about sales and marketing. They raise it before they need it. They understand their numbers. They use data, not emotion. If you take anything from this episode, let it be this. Strategy without capital is like architecture without concrete. It looks great on paper, but it doesn't stand up in the real world. You don't need another motivational quote. You need funding to implement what you already know works. So audit your runway. Get clear on your funding gap and start thinking like an investor in your own company. If you're ready to see what capital options actually fit your business, whether it's a Reg CF raise, accredited investors, or structured private equity, head over to webinar.capitalraisingacademy.com and join our free masterclass, How to Raise Capital the Smart Way Without Losing Control of Your Business. We'll break down the real numbers, the legal pathways, and the playbook service businesses are using right now to scale with outside funding, without giving up control. Because at the end of the day, the businesses that win aren't the ones with the best ideas. They're the ones with the capital to execute them. And execution is what separates stories from success.